Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing the final part in my 4-part mini-series about 5-star predictions. In this last installment, I will be talking about fantasy standalones that I think I'm going to be rating 5 stars. So let's just jump right in. The first book that I have on this list is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I heard about Susanna Clarke a couple of months back for the first time because of Piranesi. I believe it came out at the start of this year. Might have been towards the end of last year. I think it was this year. I've only heard really great things about her writing. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is the first book that she wrote. It is a mammoth of a book. I think it's about 800, 900 pages, but I'm really fascinated by the premise. I'm just going to read out a very quick summary of the plot. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is an alternative history set in 19th century England around the time of the Napoleonic Wars. Its premise is that magic once existed in England and has returned with 2 men, Gilbert Norrell and Jonathan Strange. From what I understand, they have an almost Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson type dynamic, which I love. I love Sherlock Holmes. I love his relationship with John Watson, and I'm really excited to see it in a fantasy setting. The next book in my list is Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Everybody seems to be raving about Adrian Tchaikovsky at the moment, which I think is fantastic. I love it when an author has written a lot of stuff, but then they really start to become prolific for one reason or another. Guns of the Dawn is a standalone that he's written. He's written a lot of books. He's written fantasy and sci-fi. And I've heard generally really good things about his works, but I would love to dive into his work without having to commit necessarily to another series. So I'm going to pick up Guns of the Dawn. I've heard really great things about the female protagonist. Apparently she's extremely well executed, which I love. I love a very well written female lead. I'm going to quickly read the back. First, Denlin's revolutionaries assassinated their king, launching a wave of bloodshed after generations of peace. Next, they clashed with Lascan, their royalist neighbour, pitching war machines against warlocks in a fiercely fought conflict. Gentile Emily Marshwick watched as the hostilities stole her family's young men. But then came the call for yet more Lascan soldiers in a ravaged kingdom with none left to give. Emily must join the ranks of conscripted women and march toward the front lines. With barely enough training to hold a musket, Emily braves the savage reality of warfare, but she begins to doubt her country's cause, and those doubts become critical. For her choice will determine her own future and that of 2 nations locked in battle. It sounds really great. It's also flintlock fantasy, which is a subgenre of fantasy that I've really begun to realize I really love. And so I'm really excited to read a flintlock fantasy with a female character, and it seems like it's going to be one of those books where you chart her journey as she learns to fight and lead and become her own in that sort of situations. This one, I'm going to be very surprised if it's not a 5 stars. A lot of my friends really rate this book as well, and you know, I have very similar taste to these people, so I'm really excited to see if I'm going to love it as much as they did. The next book on my list is by an author that I have raved about a lot on this channel. I've only read one of his books so far, but that will be corrected soon. And that is Brother Red by Adrian Selby. I read The Winter Road by Adrian Selby at the start of this year, and it's honestly been one of my favorites of this year. I think he is an absolutely incredible author. He writes really dark, really unforgiving worlds, but they feel extremely real, and the characters feel like normal people. They feel like the people that you know in your life, and they make decisions that you would probably make as well, given the situations that they're in. So Brother Red, so before I start this, I'm going to completely butcher the name of this character, so I apologize. Drivna Margoster, a soldier for the powerful guild known as the Post, is defending her trade caravan from a bandit attack when she discovers a dead body hidden in one of her wagons. Born of the elusive Oscuro people, the body is a rare and priceless find, the center of a tragic tale and the key to a larger mystery. As she investigates who the body was meant for, Drivna finds herself on a path paved by deceit and corruption, and it will lead her to an evil more powerful than she can possibly imagine. The really great thing that I like about Adrian Selby's books is that they are all set in the same world. He's written 3 now, and Brother Red, I believe, is set before The Winter Road. So there's going to be some familiarity. There is mention of the Oscuro people in this book who are also referenced in The Winter Road. So I'm really excited to read this. I think I'm going to really enjoy it, and I can't wait to read more of his stuff. The next book is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. So Neverwhere, I believe, actually has a sequel, but you can very much read the first book as a standalone, so that is what I will do. I've not read any Neil Gaiman yet, apart from the Norse mythology short stories, and I really enjoyed it, but I'm really excited to read more of his stuff. I feel like he gets a lot of love, and I feel like I will really like his writing. So I'm going to read the blurb of this one. It's a place most people could never even dream of. A city of monsters and saints, murderers and angels, knights in armor and pale girls in black velvet. This is the city of the people who have fallen between the cracks. Richard Mayhew, a young businessman, is going to find out more than enough about this other London. A single act of kindness catapults him out of his workday existence and into a world that is at once eerily familiar and utterly bizarre. And a strange destiny awaits him down here beneath his native city, Neverwhere. This book, I believe, it kind of has like dual timelines or something, and that is something that I don't really read that much in my fantasy, but in theory, it's something that I love the sound of. So I'm really excited to read kind of one of his most famous works, and I have a feeling I'm really going to like it by the sounds of it. It's also set in London. I live in London, so I feel like there's going to be a lot of familiarity with the world, and I'm really excited to see how it is kind of transitioned into this other version of London. The next book on my list is The Stand by Stephen King. Believe it or not, I've barely read any Stephen King. I read 11/22/63, I believe it is, and I enjoyed it. I thought the pacing was a little bit off, but I haven't read any of his fantasy or his kind of horror or thriller, but I've heard really amazing things about The Stand. I know it's like a post-apocalyptic fantasy set after an epidemic. I believe it's kind of a classic take on good versus evil, and I don't know, I have a feeling I'm really gonna love it. I think it gets a lot of love. A lot of people have told me to read The Stand by Stephen King as a kind of good entryway into his kind of fantasy. So I'm not actually gonna read the plot of this one because I feel like everybody's heard of The Stand. I think it's gonna be one of those books that will either really make me a fan of Stephen King and I'll just start reading a lot of his stuff, or it's gonna be meh, and I don't necessarily pick up more of his stuff immediately. There is another series of his that I want to read as a slight tangent, which is the Dark Tower series, and I know it's quite the behemoth of a series, but it is one that is on my list. It's going to be a while till I get there because I've got some other big series that I want to read first. And then the final book on my list is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book has a really beautiful cover. I don't actually really know what it's about. All I know is that it's kind of epic fantasy. There's a lot going on. All it says on the back is, a world divided, a queendom without an heir, an ancient enemy awakens. I mean, how does that not sound good? It is pretty big. It's just under, it's just under 800 pages, give or take. I have a feeling that this is a book that, if I was gonna have like a holiday, I'd kind of read it on a holiday and just get it done in one go. But the cover is also absolutely stunning, and I'm very excited to read this book. I've heard genuinely really good things about it. I like the fact that I don't know much about it going in, because I do feel like that can sometimes skew your opinion because you kind of go in with your own preconceptions. But regardless, I've heard genuinely really good things about it, and I'm super excited to read it. And I also think it has dragons in it, which I love dragons. I think dragons, for me, it's almost always going to be a win. So there you go. Those are some of my 5-star predictions for fantasy standalones. I'll be trying to get to some of these, or hopefully most of them, next year, but who knows at this point given the length of my TBR. But let me know, as always, if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. I'm always really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on these books, so let's take the conversation down below. I will see you in the next video. Take care, stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.